Queue. Please stand by. You will now be placed into conference.
My name is Erica Sosna, and I'm a Winston Churchill Fellow from 2012. I'm really just here to host the webinar, to welcome you here, and to share with you some of my experiences about applying to the Trust and things to look out for. So I'm going to pass you over to Hannah from the Trust, who's going to run us through the webinar this afternoon. This is being recorded, so we will be able to share with you a recording of this if there's anything you missed or any more information you would like. On the right-hand side, you can see your names and the names of others. Just below that, you'll see that there is a tick and a cross, and also a hand sign. So if you want to ask any questions, and we will generally ask you to hold on to the questions until the question point in about 20 minutes' time, just raise your hand to do so. So just to check that we're all familiar and we can all hear, if you could just press on the green tick to let us know that you can hear me speaking to you now. Great, okay, that looks like everybody's connected, so that's great. So I'm going to pass you over to Hannah now, and hope you enjoy the session. Apologies for the beep, that's other people joining, so it should tail off in the next minute or two. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Erica, for hosting this webinar for us. My name's Hannah. I'm the Communications Officer and Administrator here at the Trust, and this is the second of our webinars explaining and giving you some ideas about how to apply for the Trust. So we are going to be looking at several things today. We're going to be covering the background to the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust. We'll be looking at the categories and eligibility. We'll be going through in quite some detail how to apply, as well as how to make the most of your application. We're really glad to have Erica Sosna and also Alvin Carpio here today. They're both fellows who've done their fellowships in the last couple of years, so they'll be able to maybe include some of their own ideas at this point and tell you a bit about their experience. And then finally, we're going to be talking about what to do next, and we'll have plenty of time for you to ask any questions that you have. So the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust was launched in 1965 following the death of Winston Churchill. The money came from public donations, and the travel element is down to the fact that Churchill believed very much in the benefits of travel, of meeting other people, experiencing other cultures, and understanding other people's perspectives from different parts of the world. And he felt this could contribute to world peace. So our mission as an organisation is to carry forward that legacy, and we do that by funding British citizens from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, to travel overseas and research their passion, their ideas, and bring back that knowledge, that best practice and inspiration to their UK profession and community for the benefit of the UK. All right, so this is the application process. I'm going to go through each of these stages in a bit more detail in the next few slides. First of all, you'll need to make sure you're eligible to apply. The second thing you need to do is to read the application guidelines. Now, this is a document that's available on the website. There's a couple of places you can download it from, which we'll show you later. And it really is important that you read this carefully, because it will make things a lot more easy for you as you go through the application. It's a really nice, clear, straightforward document as well. Number 3, you'll need to be choosing a category, and we'll look at those in a minute. Next step is to check the timetable to make sure that you get your application in on time and you know what will be happening and when. And finally, to submit your application online. Okay, so eligibility. You need to be a British citizen resident in the UK and aged 18 or over by the end of 2015. And also, we can't take applications from existing Churchill Fellows. So as long as you fit those criteria, then you're more than welcome to apply. So the projects that we consider are very varied, very broad, but it will involve travel overseas outside of the UK. The project should last from between 4 and 8 weeks, so the maximum we will fund you for is 8 weeks. Some people do choose to stay on in their destination country, maybe for a holiday or to carry on with a bit more research, but that would be self-funded, so we will only your grant will cover 4 to 8 weeks. Projects we are considering are ones that will enable you to bring as much positive benefit to your community or your profession in the UK, as well as to you as an individual. And that really is the focus that the UK the benefits from your fellowship. We also often fund projects that are unlikely to be funded from other sources. So by that we just mean that we're really wide and open, and that if you've been turned down from other sources, it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll turn you down as well. No qualifications are required. We've got fellows from all different backgrounds. Applications are judged purely on the merit of the project. And just finally, we will only accept one application from one project per individual. Okay, so our categories this year. The categories change every year, and these are our 11 categories for this year. The blue text on the right shows our partners in each of these categories, and I will talk about partnership on the next slide. If you find you're looking at those categories and your project doesn't seem to fit any of them, then you would be applying under the open category. But do have a look at them, look at the explanations of each one online to see whether you think you fit them, and go for the one that fits your project the best. If not, then you'd be applying under open. So our partnerships have been developing over the last few years, and these are with other charities and organisations who have expertise in the areas where we're funding fellowships. Each partnership is different, but the main point of them is that they give us some networks to exchange ideas, to share our findings, and to help with dissemination of your learnings once you get back to the UK. Certain partnerships also provide support before and during the fellowship, and Alvin is going to be talking a bit about that later, as he's one of our young people who, as one of the fellows in the young people category, he travelled this year. So the timetable, there's 3 main stages to the application process. The first one that we're looking at now is the initial application, and the deadline for that is 5 p.m. September the 23rd, and we are quite strict about the 5 p.m. deadline. So make sure that you leave yourself plenty of time to get your application in before then, especially if you're doing it on the day, and just allow for sort of technical difficulties your end as well, because once that deadline's passed, we won't be accepting anymore. In November 2014, that's when we announced the shortlist, so this is the second phase. If you're shortlisted, then we'll be asking you a bit more information about your project. So we'll be asking more about the itinerary, where you plan to travel and when, a bit more information about your project, and this will be the stage where, if your research has meant that you've had to rethink your project at all, that's where we'd look into that. We'd also ask for referees, and we'd ask for some details of an initial budget. In January 2015, we have our interviews, and those go on during the whole of January. So the dates for the specific categories are all on the website. The awards are announced in February 2015, and from April onwards, fellows can start their projects. The project you can start your fellowship any time in the year following that, but not before April 2015. So I'm going to hand over to Erica now, so that she can tell us a bit more about the application process and how that applied to her. So if I just...
Great. So one of the key things to say, thank you, Hannah, it's really, really clear as well on the process, which is really important, I think. The key things to say is this is an incredible opportunity. I don't know of any other organisation that funds individuals to explore and travel and find out more about their areas of passion and interest. And just in May last year, we had our graduation from 2012, and it was wonderful to see the incredible range of opportunities, activities, projects ranging across education and nature and health and mental health and all kinds of the arts and creativity, all the kinds of wonderful projects that people were engaged in. So it's a really unique opportunity. Another thing to say to you is also that I applied several times before I was successful. I'm not sure if the same is true for Alvin. So, you know, the Trust gets a lot of great applications, and the key is to really be clear and focused about what you're doing and how it's going to add value to the UK when you come back. So a couple of things, just kind of pointers really for your consideration on your application that I want to share with you. I'd also very strongly encourage you not to do it at the last minute. You know, it is a wonderfully concise form, but it's not something that you're going to complete in the 30 minutes before the application, and you're unlikely to be successful if that's the time and focus you've given it. So really do give it the time and energy that it deserves. Have a look at it, digest it online, read the guidance, look at other people's reports, and have a good think about it in good time. So some things to think about as you are producing your application. First of all, why you? So what is it about who you are, where you've come from, your background, your experience, that makes you the right person to carry out this exploratory project? What's your kind of context of the work you're doing? So as an example, my program was around transformational education and looking at positive life skills methods for young people in the States and in Norway. And I spent 8 years within the educational environment exploring what works around employability and sort of life skills for young people. So that kind of, it's important for you to think about what's your business case, what's your story around this subject that you're interested in exploring. The second thing is to think about the timeliness of what you're doing. Is it particularly topical? Is it something that has attracted a lot of press or a lot of interest recently? What's currently going on within your field? And particularly when you get to interview, you will be expected to demonstrate knowledge and an informed view about the work that you're proposing to do. Third, looking at your aims. So how are you going to, what is this project all about? What are the deliverables that you want to get out of it? What do you want to come back with? And then what's your process then going to be in order to get successfully to those outcomes? So you need to be thinking with the end in mind, if you like. If you're thinking about the results you want to get, how are you going to design your travel, the locations you go to, and the people you speak to make sure you get the results you would like? Now, the next question is about, well, where are you going to go in the world? And the organisation is keen for you to take the trip that you need to take, but you also need to be mindful of costs and sufficient justification for going where you're going. So the first application really asks you to give some high-level thoughts on that, and if you're lucky enough to then be invited to interview, you're asked to fill in a much more detailed form about where you're going, who you're going to see. So you do need to start thinking about that now, as it sort of informs your first level application. You need to have some sense of where in the world you're likely to go, what you're going to be looking at, and what your travel plans might be. So a key element of the bequest was really to bring benefits back to the UK, not to the country that you're visiting. So this is not a program to enable you to volunteer overseas. It's a program to enable you to bring back what you've learned to the UK. So you need to be thinking about the ways in which what you're doing is going to be beneficial to the community in the United Kingdom, to the area of specialism that you're in, to the pool of knowledge within the category that you're applying for. You also need to be thinking about what the benefits will be for your profession, for the UK and for yourself. You know, what's in it for you? What results are you going to get that you wouldn't get otherwise from staying at home and studying, you know, or continuing to work within your environment here in the UK? So you need to be able to give some justification around that. And the last thing is really about how are you going to share what you've done and how you've done it. The trust does ask you to write a report, and that report can be in various creative formats. But further on than that, beyond the report, how are you actually going to disseminate the benefits of what you've done and share it with people in the community? And last but not least, are you going to be a good ambassador for the trust? The trust wants people who are going to be alumni that will be spreading the word about the trust and really acting as role models for the work and the opportunity that's presented there. So these are all key considerations for when you're devising your application.
Okay, thanks, Erica. Just to look at what you'll see online when you begin your application. This is the screen that will come up when you click on the applications button. As you can see on the right, we've got the guidelines. So make sure you click on that to read through the guidelines in the PDF format. You can go through the steps, each one making sure you're eligible to apply, reading the application guidelines, and then checking your category. And then once you're ready and you think you have all that done and you're happy with that, then you can click on the Apply Online button at the bottom there, and it will open your application. You can work on your application over a period of time, so it doesn't all have to be done in one go. You'll have the option to save at various parts of the application. And one thing I would recommend as well is that you maybe write your application out somewhere else as well. So for example, type it up in Word just to get your ideas together so that it's saved somewhere else, just in case something you do lose it or anything happens like that, which we're hoping it won't. We're looking for something that's really concise and to the point as well, like Erica's already said. So going on to the next page. Oh, I haven't got privileges. Erica, can you flick us over to the next next page, please? Thank you. This is the fourth page in the application, and you can see it asks you for various details, but note that there's a character and a maximum number of characters for some of the boxes, for the open text boxes. That includes spaces, and it includes line breaks as well. And the reason we're so strict on that is just so that you can be really precise, really concise and to the point about what it is you want to do. And it's actually quite a good practice to be able to explain what it is you want to do and why in that sort of limit. Yes, and so that's that. I'd also, Erica's mentioned already looking at the fellows' stories and reports that are online. I'd really recommend that if you do have a chance before you're writing your application, just to have a look at a few of those, because it will give you a really good idea of the kind of things that we offer grants for and the kind of things that fellows have done. Okay, so moving on to the next page. I'm going to introduce Alvin now, who is one of our 2014 fellows, and he's going to talk to us a bit about the kind of support that you'll get if you do become a Churchill Fellow.
Alvin, if you can press unmute to your right-hand side.
Okay, well, oh, there he is. Alvin, are you with us? Well, while we're just waiting for him, I'll start to talk a little bit about the kind of support we'd be offering, which is, Erica, can we have the next slide, please? So there's a team of us here in the office. There's 7 of us here, and we'll be giving you individual support. And yes, there's some lovely people in the team. They're really ready. We really want to help you out. We really want to offer you the best support that we can. And there's a couple of people here who really make it their sort of life's work to make this as beneficial for you and for the people you'll be visiting as possible. So that's during the application stage and as you go through into your fellowship. In March 2015, so before everyone leaves on their fellowships, we also run seminars. And these are broken into the categories. So there'll be, for example, an education seminar. There might be a science and environment seminar. And these are really to enable people to make initial connections with other fellows so that you can really start to get to know what everyone else is doing and possibly make sort of professional links as well. And we'll also be giving you some ideas and some sort of top tips for travelling during your fellowship. As I mentioned before, in some partnerships. Hello. Oh, hello, Alvin. Hi.
Hi.
Shall I hand over to you because I was just going to start talking about the kind of mentoring that's available for in some categories, including the young people category.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Great. Well, thanks for inviting me to share some thoughts with you. As Erica and Hannah have mentioned, I was a fellow this year. Still got the fellow blues after returning a month ago. I went to the US, to New York, Boston, Washington and Chicago to look at how community leaders are pushing for social change. And I think in terms of the early support, what was really useful, just to add to Erica's comments earlier on, was the fact that during the application process, I worked closely with the organizations I worked for. So I worked for a charity and was thinking about, long-term how this could have an impact back in the UK, as well as a organization, another charity called the Uprising Leadership Program, which I worked with closely to think about how we could potentially, in the long term, spread the lessons learned from the fellowship. But as soon as I luckily became a Churchill Fellow, what I found really useful was the fact that the trust was very open to answering any questions I had. So the team, Harj, Julia and Jamie, were very open, and they're just an email or a phone call away, particularly on logistical issues. So do not hesitate to give them a email or call. But in terms of the actual formal support, we had a seminar with fellows according to your category. So for me, I was joined by around 15 fellows who are all doing different types of projects. And I thought what was really useful for that was just to share ideas and to really think about how we could have an impact on return, but also how we could really make the most of our fellowship in the US. And it was really good to also to meet other fellows early on who were embarking on their own journeys. I luckily was mentored by Keji from NICVIS, and for me, what was really useful was the fact that she really expanded what I first saw the fellowship was all about. So initially, my plan was to meet a lot of individuals, formal meetings, one-to-one sit-downs, and then she actually, really expanded the vision of what it could be. And in the end, I spent more time actually walking around the communities in the streets of Chicago, speaking to people, spending a lot more time with people rather than formal sit-downs, but also shadowed projects for a couple of days, which actually in the end became the most insightful experiences. One of the other good things is that since I've returned, Isabel from NICVIS 2 has supported me in terms of how I think about the report. Now, once you go there, it will be an absolute adventure. You'll be meeting people, you'll be taking notes, you'll be, it's an amazing experience. And so coming back, one of the challenges is really to distill all of those lessons and learning points into a readable, interesting report. And that's one of the challenges which I'm currently attempting to tackle now. And Isabel has been very helpful in supporting me through phone calls, as well as reviewing some of my early thinking online. And I think that's a few things that I've received support for, and I think one of the key things is just not to be afraid to ask for help, as well as, during your application period, not being afraid to be ambitious about what you want to achieve out there. And all I can say is, have an amazing adventure if you get in, and if you don't get in, try again. And hopefully, I wish you good luck on your applications in the coming weeks.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Alvin. That's a bit of an example of how our partnerships and how other fellows are supporting our existing fellows. Yeah, so I think we should open it up to questions now. So, Erica, do you want to explain how best to do this bit, please?
Sure. So probably the easiest thing is below your name, in the box on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a little hand, like a high-five hand. If you can put your high-five hand up if you'd like to ask a question, then we'll be scrolling down and keeping an eye out for you. And I will then unmute you, let you know I'm unmuting you, and you'll be able to ask us a question. If you feel more comfortable, you can also ask us questions in the chat. I'll do my best to keep a track of those for you. I think maybe, Alvin, if you could mute. Thank you. Okay, Claire Hughes, just give me a moment. I'm going to find you on our big list and see if I can unmute you. Claire, are you? Oh, your hand's gone down. So I'm going to. Basu, I'm going to connect you now. You're unmuted now. There we go.
Okay. My question is, hi. If you're interested in something, but someone has done something similar before, does that sort of affect your application?
Hi, Basu.
Hi.
No, well, because we have these particular categories, we do, for example, if I take this year, we've been running the arts and older people category for a couple of years now. So we do have lots of people who have applied in that field and who have done similar type of fellowships. But the thing is, because you're an individual and because your project will be individual, there'll always be something that makes your project different, makes it stand out, because you won't be going to the same places or meeting the same people. If you're looking through the projects that have already been done, so do have a look at the stories and reports online, and you find one that really is very, very, very similar, going to the same places, looking at the same area of your field, then there may be some overlap. But that's something we can, if we felt your project was viable, that we could talk about in the interview. That I think that would happen very rarely, though.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Michelle O'Brien asked the question of whether we cover loss of earnings. I don't believe that we do. Is that right, Hannah?
Sorry, can you say that again, Erica?
The budget for your travel, it includes your travel and your flight, but it does not include covering your loss of earnings.
No, it doesn't, I'm afraid, no.
We don't pay your salary to be away, unfortunately. No. The program is for a maximum of 8 weeks, but you don't have to go for all the 8 weeks. That's the other thing I would say. I work full-time, and I worked it around my role. So I think I went away for 2 weeks and then for another 10 days on a different project. So you don't have to use all of the time available, and you can manage it, obviously, around your work commitments. But the expenses around your salary would be something that you would need to manage.
Yeah, I think that's another important point, actually, Erica, is what Erica's just said about being able to split the fellowship. We prefer you to do the whole thing in one chunk, just to kind of maintain momentum and energy. But obviously, we realise that for not everyone, that's not going to be possible for everyone. So some people choose to spend, say, 2 weeks in one country and then do the second part of their fellowship at a later time. And that's something we talk to you about as an individual.
A couple of questions that are coming through. Sorry, Alvin. A couple of questions coming through on the chat. Ross was asking about doing an internship in the experience.
That is something we would need to, if you want to give me a call or send me an email and explain exactly what it is you want to do. We don't fund scholarships or university placements, anything like that. So maybe get in touch with us directly about that, and we'll have a chat to you.
Sophie Gilbin is asking. Go on, Alvin.
Sorry, just to add on to the previous question, I think that was one of the key lessons throughout this whole fellowship session lead up, was working very closely with my employer to work out, practicalities. And so having early conversations with your employer is really useful, because obviously every employer will be different, but some would split it where you can take leave, some would split it where you take unpaid leave, and I think having those conversations early on is very useful.
Yeah, and it's and kind of responsible as well. I expect that if you have got as far as an interview and not worked out logistically how it was going to happen, it might not be received that favourably. So another question from Sophie is that she plans to stay longer, up to 6 months, with this week in my application. So the programme itself only funds up to 8 weeks of activity that's specifically around the project. I believe you're more than welcome to stay on longer for other things you want to do, but that wouldn't be funded by the trust. Would that be right, Hannah?
Yeah, that's right. We'd only fund the up to 8 weeks, and anything beyond that you'd need to fund yourself. And we'd need to talk to you about that as well, because obviously it ties in with return flights and insurance and things like that as well. So we'd want to talk to you about that. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't stay out if you're happy to fund it yourself.
James Edmonds, I'm going to unmute you now for questions.
Hello everybody. My question really has to do with something that I think it was Erica mentioned in her preamble, to do with the report, and that you mentioned something called the various creative reports. The thing is, so far I have seen a number of reports made by fellows, and they are all very, very, very good, but they're all written reports. Would you accept a proposal that effectively has as its main outcome being a filmed documentary?
Hi, James. Yes, we would. We do actually have some. We have a YouTube. I think at least one of our fellows has done a filmed report, and it's on YouTube somewhere. But we're actually in the middle of relaunching our website, so at some point in the future, it will be a lot easier to see the different types of reports we have. But there's no reason why you couldn't do your report as a film if you wanted to, as long as it contained all the information we needed from you. And we'd give you all of that when you return from your fellowship.
Lovely, but I imagine though that the budget as such, can we submit a budget for such a project? In other words, something that would be above the travel and daily expenditures and stuff, and put in a budget for
creating a
film budget. Yeah.
It really would depend on your project. If film equipment and programs were absolutely essential for your project and you wouldn't be able to do it without them, then we do on occasion consider funding equipment as well, if it really is essential for the project. But yeah, that's something we would have to consider on a case-by-case basis. So you'd need to outline carefully in your application and really justify why you would need money to carry that out.
Okay, I think I've got that. I'm going to let other people go. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, James. I'm going to put Jane Bentley on now, just 1 minute.
Hello there. Just a wee question about the application process, and I know it's got these different stages. We've got our initial one and then hopefully a shortlisted bit. What level of detail are you looking for about the project at each different stage, and how much does it have to be kind of sewn up? For example, there's a lot of different organizations I would love to visit, and obviously that involves a lot of contacting people, and maybe not all of them would kind of get back to you and go for it. So I imagine it might change as things go on. So is the level of detail possibly at the first stage and then maybe on the shortlisted stage?
Maybe I can sort of answer the second part of that question. I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, things will change. It takes a lot of time to actually set up meetings, especially with different time zones and so forth. But I think having a sort of general plan about who you'd like to reach out to and potential connections who might be able to connect you with them is very useful. So in terms of the amount of detail, initially it was useful for me to just list the organizations that I really wanted to reach out to, as well as a list of people who would be able to make the connection. And it will change. I mean, when I was actually out there, some meetings didn't happen because things changed, but then you meet one person and that person introduces you to 5 different people. So I think the fellowship are very realistic and pragmatic about that. But, you know, thinking about that short list of the top organizations you want to speak to initially is most useful, and obviously detailing why those organizations are the ones you want to meet, and giving some indication of the possibility of meeting them too. So is it likely or is it unlikely? And I think just being upfront with that is useful.
Kat, Beth and Claire, I haven't chosen you because I don't seem to be able to unmute you, which means that you're either not connected in an audio fashion that we can access. So maybe you could type your questions into the Q&A and I will do my best to get them answered for you. Alan Rogers?
Oh, hi. It stems from something that Alvin said, that he suddenly found that shadowing a project for 2 days was actually a very valuable experience, and he hadn't actually programmed for that. It was something that happened. The question that's really puzzling me is describing the benefits for people back in the UK, because some of those benefits you don't know before you've gone and actually experienced the residency. You can't say that I will do 10 lessons for these people at this point in time, because you don't know what those lessons are yet. They'll come from the research. So I just wondered what kind of a detail you wanted around that question about describing the benefits.
I think really that is a really key area. So we'll be looking at your project in terms of how it will benefit the UK. So thinking about if all went to plan, what would be the good things you could bring back to the UK? Obviously, you don't know exactly what you're going to discover while you're out there, but you can know what how you're going to share best practice when you return to the UK. I don't know if Erica, you've got any thoughts on that.
Can I just chip back in? It was interesting. A previous caller said that he was, he was working a lot with his employer. If you are freelance and you don't work with one employer, that's there are a number of things you could do that you'd hope to do to share that knowledge, but you might not be able to say specifically it would take place at this institution or it would take place here.
I don't think people are looking for that, though. I think what they're looking for in terms of benefits is to be able to explain in what ways you might share and how that might help people. For example, I just recently published a book called Your Life Plan, which is a careers coaching book for young adults. And that came about as a result of the work that I did with the Winston Churchill Bursary. So I couldn't have told them when I first applied, I'm definitely going to write a book and it's going to be published by Wiley. But what I could tell them was I'm definitely planning to share what I've learned with other colleagues and peers within this environment through things like running talks, doing workshops, publishing articles, starting a blog. So looking at the ways in which you'll disseminate what you've learned in ways that will be beneficial to others. You don't need to be overly prescriptive about how many and where, but you need to at least have a view about okay, well, might I be doing a TED talk, or do I think that there might be a particular association that might find this useful, or am I planning to integrate this into my day-to-day work? So it's kind of having a view about where the benefits might land.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Is that helpful? And I also would say, I mean, a few people have sort of posted about being freelance as opposed to being employed and kind of managing both kind of financial affairs and the sort of arrangements around that. I guess it's a once-in-a-lifetime paid opportunity to travel somewhere, which one wouldn't have otherwise. So we'd probably also encourage you to see if there are ways that you can kind of juggle that so that possibility comes alive for you. So for a few other people who'd asked that about freelancing, I just wanted to share that too. Laura Singer?
Hello. My question is for a few more examples about how you can participate in the work of organisations when you're there. I understand that you're not going to do volunteering, but like Alvin said, I've contacted a number of organisations, and I'm thinking of doing something a little bit more than what face-to-face interviews. So, for example, what I've suggested to them is possibly linking up for any training they're doing, or if they're holding events or conferences, or kind of co-facilitating to learn about their style, shadowing. Is that the kind of thing people do? I'd just like a little bit more detail about that, please.
Yeah, I have to say that that's exactly the kind of things that you need to be thinking about. I think as well as shadowing an organisation that they were essentially helping young people involved in gang activity, and for me to spend a couple of days with them shadowing the workers, that was the most insightful thing, and actually spending time with the young people themselves. That happened because it was a simple question of, guys, can I shadow you? And what you'd be surprised is that, if you just ask the question, people are very likely to accept it, and they're very willing to help out. In terms of conferences as well, I went to a couple of conferences just to see how they run conferences, and the kind of, you get basically 20 speakers telling you interesting things within a day, which is great. As well as sort of, I think one of the things that was told to me early on is that, wherever you go, they want to hear from you too. So the idea of getting involved and speaking to an organisation and saying, look, this is what I could offer you too, that is something which I think is the whole Winston Churchill thing about bringing peace to the world. It's about ensuring that it's a two-way exchange. So that's exactly the kind of things you need to be thinking about, as well as the one-to-one sort of meetings, lunches, and so forth.
So how long did you spend? Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I mean, I was just going to say that, shadowing, participating in their work is a key element of learning, what people are up to. So, yeah, we definitely encourage things like that.
And roughly what sort of period of time do people spend with the host organisation?
It varies really wildly. I mean, if somebody was following eagles across Russia, so he wasn't spending any time with anybody. He was tracking birds. Right? When I went to the folk schools in Norway, I spent 6 days residentially with one school, and I think in the States I spent anything from 1 day to 5 days, depending on the organisation and the relationship and the work that we were doing together. I expected a huge variation. Would that be right, Hannah?
Yeah, it really depends on the project, and you basically look at what you want to, who you want to talk to, and how long you think you'll need to spend with that person or in that organisation in order to find out what you need to know. And obviously that may change when you get out there. You may find yourself with a group or an organisation that you feel this would really benefit me to spend a bit more time here and maybe get a bit more involved. And that is possible. There is flexibility around that. So yeah.
Hannah, Kat Weatherall is asking if because she already does a lot of international travel in her work, if this is likely to count against her.
Excuse me. No, we do. There is a question, I think, on the application form that asks whether you've travelled before. The only reason we really ask that is just to, out of interest, to know if we'll be needing to give any more support, for example, and it really doesn't, there's no right or wrong answer to that question, so that's not a problem.
Louise Clark, I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, yeah, it was a question around ethics and if you are hoping to be able to talk to service users or people that are quite vulnerable that are using the project you're linking with, are we provided with some guidance that we can provide the recipient organisation so that they're comfortable with you being there and asking the questions, really?
Can I open that up to Erica and Alvin to see if they've got any experience of that first?
I think that I would, well, I know that the trust didn't, the role of the trust is to fund you to take an extraordinary journey. All of the other elements about how you do what you do are really up to you as the expert in that area.
Okay.
So I expect it probably be something you would negotiate with the individual organisation concerned. Also, generally, in terms of reporting, nobody's looking for, you know, this is this person's story of experiencing abuse in this particular context. That isn't what the trust is looking for from you. It's looking for a high-level report about what you've been engaged in, the value that it's given, and what might happen next. So I think the sort of spectrum of confidentiality would be yours to manage, really.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely a case-by-case basis. One of the organisations I met said, you know, I can't take any photos of the service users, but happy to speak to them. Another one, you know, there was extra security when I was shadowing someone from the Secretary for Education's office in Washington, D.C. So it always varies. I think one of the key things, though, is remembering the reputation of the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust in the U.S. And actually, they are trusting of fellows. And obviously you are representing them out there, so I guess, yeah, as a fellow, it's sort of like taking responsibility yourself as well.
Thanks very much.
Graham, Richard.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good, thank you. Somebody mentioned just now about attending conferences while they were out there. If there were conferences that fitted in with what we're looking at, would that be paid for by the trust? For instance,
yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Have you finished?
No. Second part of the question. If I visited a project and that project also ran courses, I know you don't fund courses, but if the person, the fellow, funded the course themselves, would that be acceptable?
I'll start with the conferences. Yeah, if a lot of our fellows do attend conferences during their travels, and it would depend on the conference, on the project, and on how beneficial it would be to the project. So if we felt, once you'd explained what it was for, if we felt that it really would be an essential part of the learning, then yes, that we would consider funding it. The same with courses. I'm not so sure about courses, but I do believe that some fellows have done similar things on their travels. But yeah, that would be something that we'd need to talk to you individually about. So it's worth mentioning in your application that, you know, I'd like to go on this course because of these reasons, but it may be that we don't fund that when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, it's in the context of. I was just going to say, it's in the context of a craft skill where a project is teaching the people in the community craft skills, but it might actually be beneficial to do one of the courses that they run to gain more skills yourself while you're there.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy to pay for that if that's not covered by the trust, but as long as that's acceptable that while I'm visiting the project, I could actually do the course if I'm paying for it.
I think that sounds fine, Graham. I think if you pop that in an email to us, and I'll just run through it with Julia or Jamie here in the office, and if I run it by them, then they could give you a better answer, I think.
Fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Rob Morrison.
Hi there. I we had a question around the general level of applications in terms of numbers of people, number of general, if you have like statistic or basic information about how many general fellowships are awarded each year, and then the sort of levels of applications you're accepting, and then the levels of sort of numbers of people applying for those, just to kind of get a sense of the scale of like how many people are going for the individual fellowships.
Sure. Okay, well, I've got those in front of me, fortunately. We had applications in 2014. We had 1,182 applications, and it does tend to be around 1,100, 1,200 overall. Out of those, we awarded 137 fellowships. So it's about 1 in 10 kind of area.
Okay.
And this year we're hoping to give 150 fellowships.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks for that.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Kat Wetherill? Kat?
I don't think you can hear me, can you?
Yep, yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now.
Hello.
Yay. Yes, I was asking about the how flexible are the interview dates? Is there a set day for each of the categories? And if you're not able to attend the interview on that day, is it possible to come in at another time?
Yeah, the interview dates are set because we invite in a panel of experts for those particular days. So it really is important that when you're applying, you do have a look at the dates in January when your category will be interviewed.
When are those dates released?
A lot of them are on the website already.
Oh, are they?
Yes, not all of them, as far as I know. But if you have a look on the website, under the application section, there's a little button called Timeline, I think.
Yeah.
And if you click on that, it will give you all the dates that you need to think about.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if it's not there, then do get in touch, and they should all be up by the end of this month, as far as if they're not there already.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Hannah, Steve would like to know what the average award size is. And I just need to raise that I'll probably need to start wrapping us up after that question.
We tend not to talk about average grants because each project is just so very, very different. So we'll have certain people will travel to Europe, where we have others who are crossing oceans and going to Australia or Japan, and it really can vary so much. So you don't need to worry about budget at this stage. You won't be asked any questions about your expected budget until the second round, where we will start to ask for some general ideas of how much you expect to spend. But that will all be done in partnership with us, and we'll be talking to you about if we do have any questions, then we'll talk through that with you. So there's no, you won't be excluded because you've misjudged your budget at all.
Okay, Hannah, if people want to get in touch and have a chance to have an individual conversation with yourself or other members of the trust, what's the best way for them to do that?
Okay, well, you can get in touch with me. So I'm Hannah. You can contact me on my email address, which is hannah.shaw@wcmt.org.uk. Or you can give us a call. Our office number is 020 7799 1660, I think. I've just written down a different number. It is. And so we'll be so happy to hear from you. We really will be happy to take your call. All the information to contact us is also on the website. So do get in touch, and we'll help you as much as we can.
So I hope this has been a useful opportunity for everyone. We would all strongly encourage you to apply. Think it through, give it a go. If you're successful, get through to the next stage, wonderful. If you don't, keep trying. And let people know about it. Such an incredible opportunity. So I know that the Trust is keen to make sure that everybody knows about it and has equal access to it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this recording. I will send it to Hannah, and they will then circulate it. So if there's anything that you missed, it will include copies of the slides. You'll be able to look at the whole thing again, and I think it will also be on the website to share later on. So we will make sure to do that. Any closing thoughts, Hannah or Alvin, before we go?
No, none other than to thank you all for joining us. I hope it's been useful, and thank you very, very much to Erica and Alvin for joining us, and Erica for facilitating this today.
I thought it might be fun to unmute you all so that we can all say goodbye to each other. I'm going to have a go at this now. It's going to go a little bit wild.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Hello, goodbye. Good luck.
Bye. Bye.